Alright, geometry day. Take a couple seconds to work on these warm-up problems. I know I'm not here, but still review. Coming up on Friday, we will have a review test, which will cover all five of these things, which might possibly come up on there. So a good review for you of that. Check how you do. This is under section 4.3 on Blackboard there. So again, take a couple seconds here. About 2, 3, 4 minutes work on these. Alright, hopefully it took a couple minutes there. Looking through my slope now. Want to find the slope. Slope of the line, y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. When I do that, I'm going to get 8 over 6, which would have a slope of 4 over 3. Midpoint, again, midpoint is just the average of the coordinates. So I look at the average of my x values, add up the x values, divide by 2, giving me 1. Add up the y values, divide by 2, which would give me 1 again. So my midpoint is 1, 1. And then distance, again, used in distance formula, Pythagorean theorem. Either way you work it, you're going to get a distance of 10 here. When you work it out, I think you get 6 squared plus 8 squared, which would then equal 100, which then the square root of 100, oh, and I hit the wrong button, square root of 100. There we go. Square root of 100, which would then equal 10. So again, the slope was 4 over 3, midpoint was 1, 1, and the distance was 10. 2. Write an equation parallel to y equals 2x plus 3. Through a point. Parallel now recognized. Parallel lines would have the same slope. So I'm going to take that slope with my new point, and I'm going to put it into point slope form. So y plus 6 equals 2, parentheses, x minus 4. From there, if I want to put it into slope-intercept form, I could. I would have to distribute and then subtract the 6, which would give me y equals 2x minus 14. All right, number 3. Parallel, perpendicular, intersecting, or coincide. A little review from our test here. So I'm looking at the slopes now for these. My slopes, if you notice, are negative reciprocals. So my answer here is perpendicular. And they're negative reciprocals because it's 1 over 1, which the negative reciprocal, that would be negative 1 over 1, which the slopes are. 4. Classify the triangles. Looking at this, you recognize 2 of them are the same length. Hopefully you know that this is then an isosceles triangle. And the last one here, if 2 angles in a triangle measure 34 and 64, what is the third angle? So hopefully remember, a triangle adds up equal to 180. So 34 plus 64 would get us 98, which now subtracting that from 180, my angle would be 82 degrees. Alright, so again, a little review. On your test coming up, you will have a lot of these problems from number 1. A lot of 2 and a lot of 3 for sure. Maybe a couple 4 and 5. We haven't done a lot there yet. But again, test Friday, expect to have those. Alright, today we're going to talk about congruent triangles. Again, continuing on in this chapter, talking a lot about triangles. Now we're going to start to get into our congruency factors. Looking at what makes triangles congruent, what makes congruent parts. So section 4.3 on Blackboard. Follow along as we go through this today. Vocabulary here. Corresponding angles. Corresponding angles. Now this corresponding, kind of similar type definition here, but it's angles, again, it's corresponding in the same position. Now the key is they're going to be in 2 different polygons that have the same number of angles. So corresponding angles, so if I draw a triangle here and a triangle here, these angles right here would be corresponding angles. They're the same angle on both of those. Those would be the right angles. Those would be corresponding. Corresponding sides, again, sides in the same position in 2 different polygons that have the same number of sides. So if I look at my triangles again, something like that, my sides over here could be my corresponding sides. Then the last one is congruent polygons. 2 polygons whose corresponding sides and angles are congruent. So the sides and the angles are congruent. They're the exact same thing, essentially. Alright, so looking up here, congruent triangles. Triangles are congruent if they have the same shape and size. Their corresponding parts, the angles and sides that are in the same positions, are congruent. Now, here's going to be the key today, is you have to label them correctly. So if you look down here, triangle ABC is the same as congruent to triangle JKL, which means A, if I can pull it up here, minimize it, A is matched up with J. B is matched up with K. C is matched up with L, which again, if you look over here, it shows that in that order. A, B, C, J, K, L. They have to be matched up correctly. Then the sides are the same too. A, B's with J, K. And if you look even over at the congruency symbols over here, they would show as well. You know, A, J has 1. C and L, they have 3 there. Okay, so again, all those marks means those specific ones are congruent. So recognize that. Alright, so number 1 here. I am given triangle XYZ is congruent to triangle NPQ. Identify the congruent corresponding parts. So if I look at it, I'm looking at angle Z. So angle Z here, I notice has 2 lines in its angle. So looking on the same triangle on the other side, on the other triangle now, if I look at Q, angle Q is its corresponding part because it also has the 2 mark in there as well. So I mean those 2 are congruent. Again, look back here, number 2. So I have line or segment YZ. So if I look YZ as the 2 mark, I'm looking on the other one, QP. Well, that is congruent now as well. As I continue to go through this, now what happens if I don't know the angle parts? Well, I can look up here, angle P. If I look up here, I'm looking right at angle P. I notice it's in the middle. So I'm going to look over here at the middle. Well, it's going to have to be matched up with angle Y. And if I look over here now on my triangle, angle P has 1 mark, angle Y has 1 mark. That would be correct. Those are congruent. As I continue on through this, angle X would be the same as angle N. And Q would be the same as XZ. Oh, forgot my line above the QP there. XZ. And then PN would be the same as XY. So again, for this, you're just looking for those corresponding parts. If you're not given the corresponding parts as a triangle like this, make sure you look at how they're labeled when they say they're congruent, because the parts will have to match up. Alright, so continue on here with congruent triangles. I'm given EFG. Oh, wrong button here. Triangle EFG is congruent to triangle RST. So I'm looking, I need to solve for X here first. So if I look at X, I see an X right here with 4X plus 6. The corresponding part with E, so if I look in E, the corresponding part would be R. Now notice R is 90 degrees because it's a right angle there. So I'm going to say 4X plus 6 equals 90. And I'm going to solve for X now. So subtract X, giving me 4X equals 84. Divide by 4. X equals 21 right there. So again, using those corresponding parts, I can solve for indicated variables or angles or sides in a measure or in a given triangle. Same thing here now. I'm going to look at Y. It tells me Y equals 28, so I'm looking for Y. I see Y here at angle T. Oh, there's the erase button. So angle T is here, which means it's matched up with angle G. So I work it out here. 5Y minus 2 equals 28. And for there, I'm going to solve for Y. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. 5Y equals 30. Divide by 5. Y, it comes out to equal 6. So I can solve for the corresponding parts knowing how they correspond. How do they match up together? And then I look at angle F here. So now I want to solve for angle F. Well, if I look angle F, I do not know. But I do know X is 21, which means this angle right here is, hopefully you're thinking it, if it's corresponding over here, it would be 90 degrees. So using my triangles theorem here. So a little review of triangles here. Triangles, add up to 180 degrees. Okay. So if I look here, I have 180 minus 90 minus 28. Subtracting that, and I would get an angle F, which would come out to be 62 degrees.
Cool.
So then I'm going to look here. ST, so I'm looking at ST over here. Clear up my triangle so you can see a little more. I want to try and find what ST is. So if I look at where ST is matched up on my triangles here, notice it's the last two parts. So they'd be matched up with FG. So this would be the same as this right here. And if they are the same, I'm going to set them up the same. So 3z minus 8 equals z plus 4. And if they're, I'm just going to solve for z. So subtract z on both sides, giving me 2z minus 8 equals 4. Come up at the top so I'm not out of room. Add the 8, giving me 2z equals 12. Divide by 2. And z equals 6. And then, remember, I always need to go back in and plug it back in to make sure I solve it correctly. 6 plus 4, ST would be a length of 10 units. So I realize, a lot going through there, but using what you know, you can solve for a lot of these indicated parts. Alright, so now it's time for you to work some of these out on your own here. So number 11, now recognize there is not a second shape, but it says in a baseball home plate is a pentagon, A, B, C, D, E, if you marked it all off. And there's kind of a diagram there of a regulation home plate. The baseball rules are very specific about the exact dimensions of this pentagon so that every home plate is congruent to every other home plate. If pentagon PQRST is another home plate, identify each congruent corresponding part. So take a couple seconds here, work these out, press play, then you're back ready to go. Alright, hopefully it took a couple seconds here. So if you look at angle S, so I'm looking at angle S, and notice it's the second to last one. I come up here, angle D, matched up with then angle D. Same thing on angle E here, so I'm looking at angle E. Angle E is the very last one, has to be matched up with the very last one over there. That'd be matched up with angle T. Now side lengths sometimes can get a little bit more confusing, but if I look here, I have EA, so the last one on the first one, well, that has to be matched up with then TP, the last one on the first one. And the last one, TS, so I'm looking at the last two, matched up with the last two, DE would be the corresponding parts there. And last one here, take a couple seconds, try out working some of these missing angles. I know there's a lot going on, there's X, there's Y, you know some different angles, you don't know some different angles. Look for what you do know is true. So for example, I know F is matched up with N. I have 5y equals 120. I can solve for y right there. Okay. I also know ED is matched up with LM. So 2x plus 3 is going to be the same thing as 53. So match up what you do know, and then you can solve for some of those missing parts there. So again, take a couple seconds, work these out, solve for what you do, and then make sure you go back in and find the answers over here. So hopefully you work some of this out, finding some of these different angles. You would have to find out that y equals 24, and x comes out to be 25 to really find anything. When you know that, you can plug it in. I'm going to find angle L first. I'm going to take this information, x equals 25, plug it in up here, 25 plus 15. L comes out to be 40 degrees. And then the last one here, I want to find EF. So in order to find EF here, I need to use y. So I need to take what y equals 24. So I'm going to take this y equals 24, plug it all the way in over here for y, and then add 1.3, giving me 37.3 units. Alright, and that's it for today. So here's your assignment. Recognize, please, it is on Shobi. So make sure you take a picture of it at some point. And being I'm not here, I am going to be a nice guy here. I'm going to give you the number 3 assignment. But again, take a picture of it. Send it up on Shobi. There should be an assignment list in there. Get that to me on Thursday, please. If you have any questions, let me know. You can submit questions through Shobi as well if you're not sure about a couple things. And I'll try and get back to you there. All right, thanks, guys.